Okay, my name is Nathan Roll, and I will be presenting Imperial Oil's merger with Texaco Canada, the economic issues that arise from this, and the fault of the court case decision. So moving on. So a brief history of Imperial Oil. Prior to the merger, Imperial Oil was the largest integrated oil company in Canada. In 1980, Imperial Oil produced about 250.74 thousand barrels per day in petroleum products, giving them about a 15% stake in the total refining capabilities in Canada. This is of note to say that though 15% is a lot, it's not enough to directly influence price due to other major players such as Royal Dutch Shell, Petro Canada, and Texaco Canada that contribute equal or greater shares to the market. So Texaco Canada, much like Imperial Oil, was a large integrated oil company contributing large shares to the market of refining capabilities. They produced about 276,000 barrels per day, a little bit up from what Imperial did, but they just don't have the same size in general, giving Texaco a market share of just under 16%. It's important to note that during the time of the merger just before, Texaco Canada was actually on the brink of big bankruptcy due to some involvement in the Getty Oil Pennzoil merger. So because of this, they were on the brink of bankruptcy, and they were needing to sell their assets to hopefully get out of this. Moving on, this is just a production breakdown from Imperial Oil. You can see the exchanges between 1985 to 1989. You can see that there was a substantial increase in production from Texaco, and again another increase in Imperial. The main number to focus on is the 317.52 thousand barrels per day. This is the overall production of Imperial Oil after they had already captured all the assets from the merger from Texaco. Moving on, the post-merger for gasoline, you can see that the increased production by about 27% due to the merger from where they were in 1988, which gave them about a 5% gain in market share. This gain in market share of refined products is important when considering the overall effect the merger had on downstream retail distribution and the controllability of the process over time. More market share, more ability to control the market, more ability to control prices, and better use that vertical integration. To further develop the point, the pre-merger data suggests Imperial had between a market share in most major Canadian cities about 10 to 20%. Texaco Canada observed about 10% market share in the exact same cities. So when you're comparing HHI, which measures concentration, from 18 months prior to the merger to months after, you can see there's a substantial gain across the board in most Canadian cities. Being that there was a 100-point increase, which is enough to be substantial. And in all cities, apart from St. John's, HHI showed above 1,500, which by most regulatory standards is seen as a substantially concentrated market, meaning that there's only about a couple major players and very few small independent players. This is just showing the market data from pre-merger to after the merger, showing the different market shares from the different cities. Relevant market issues due to this merger was the significant decrease in competition and their ability for Imperial to create an economies of scale type scenario, giving them efficiency gains because of this merger through plant specialization, lower transportation costs, lowering their average overall average variable cost, which allows them to price manipulate, predatory price, and create a control and hold on the market, which thus leads to large barriers to entry for future entrants. So the market power on participation. So as Imperial gained market share in localized markets, they would have the efficiency power to begin increasing output and lowering in prices to a level the competitive fringe won't be able to compete at. If the price dips below their average variable cost for the independent, they're going to be forced to shut down and withdraw from the market. But rather, if Imperial allows them to do this and predatorily prices, so they do this, that lessens the competition, and then they're going to be able to increase prices in the long run, creating an oligopoly through the other major players and the other vertically integrated companies within the market already. So if the retail price is kind of the same thing for entering firms rather than firms that are already in the market, This limited pricing strategy would implicate those independent entrants who would not be able to compete on the price. If the price is in the market is already lower than what they're going to be able to compete at, the entrant will not see that as a viable source of income by entering the market. The incumbent will hold all the market share, and again, lessens competition, allows them to increase their market power. So the reason why the competition got involved was, again, going back to the main point of the lessening of competition. This is because they controlled a large share of the market, they thought the independents were going to suffer because of that, because they're going to be able to lower price. And then across the board in most Canadian cities was going to lower the competition, which is not good for both consumers and those independent retailers. The 5 main reasons that they gave was the elimination of major refiner marketers in the Atlantic Canada region, the elimination of significant supply alternatives, the reduction of the availability of terminating facilities, the elimination of effective competitors, and the increase in the opportunity for independent marketers to behave among refining marketers. So again, does not give them independents the ability to compete on any prices because of the vertical integration and how it works, how it's already low cost, but now funneling it into one pipeline, it becomes less costly for those vertically integrated firms to operate. Thus, they'll be able to operate at a much lower price and sell at lower refined products at a lower price to consumers, thus driving out the independents. So the major pro for this merger that many affidavits went for was the efficiencies gained through this merger. A lot of the times in these merger cases that they can actually fight for the merger based off of these efficiencies, because the Competition Bureau, though, is there to prevent competition or is to empower competition, that efficiencies within the market overall sometimes overrule that competition lag. So from joint operation of the Sarnia and Natatoke refineries, see this increase in output of the merger, and it goes back to the whole specialization thing, where if we're able to specialize in one refined product in the refinery, it's going to make it more cost effective, as well as you're going to be able to sell different refined products at a lower cost, as well as funneling. If you have 2 major refineries and you funnel it into one pipeline, instead of having to have 2 different distribution channels, 2 different distribution networks in general, it's very costly to operate those 2, but if you can operate them as a one whole unit and mitigate those costs, again, it goes back to that ability to lower the cost significantly from what those independents would be if they were just offering at a wholesale price. The opposition to the merger, not allowing it to go through, was, again, the reduction of competition, the ability to create barriers to entry, price fix, and the ability for the competitive fringe not to operate. Increasing competition at the refinery level translate directly to the ability for Imperial Oil to manage output levels more effectively and create pricing strategies. Vertical integration is already notorious for this because they do have such a low cost compared to those independents, but just increasing the market share as well as with this vertical integration is just a cause for disaster. The Atlantic region concerns was a main focus for the Competition Bureau. As the time of this merger happened, 96% of the Atlantic Canada at the time was controlled by only 5 large gasoline retailers. So you can already see the market is very concentrated with these 5 major firms, not a lot of room for these independents to act. So they act, again, like an oligopoly type market where those firms kind of compete with each other and then just kind of leave a little bit for the independents, but they have the ability to drive those independents out completely. And then you have concern for, again, increasing in prices. They can act as a cartel, they can collaborate, and the consumer then suffers. Not only does the independent suffer, but the consumer will suffer in the long run as well. So the case decision, they made a whole bunch of decisions with divestitures and trying to flatten out the merger, whether it was debranding 346 retail outlets, divestiture of 9 distribution terminals, and the sell division of Atlantic assets are kind of the main talking points, as well as the guarantee supply to independent retailers. What I find is the fault of the case is the overall strength Imperial maintained from the merger allowed them to keep enough of the Texaco assets that they're not as well off as what they could have been, but without interference, they were still able to control the market as if they gained still from where they were in 1988. And we'll go into that further. So post-decision in 1980, they were still able to produce 311,000 barrels per day, just down incrementally from where they were in 1989 when the merger came on. The real effect of the merger was kind of in 1991 and on, where their production fell to 279. But again, it only caused about a 2% change in market share from 1989 to 1991. So it's not that substantial in the long run. Again, this just goes back to the data. You can see here the total production, the market share dropping. This big market drop in 1994, you can see there was kind of a cliff after 1992. And it fell substantially. There's a lot of different reasons for that, whether that may be OPEC involvement, decreasing prices, they're not producing as much as what they were, and other factors like that. My main focus is the 1990 to 1991 range, and 92, where that short-term effect could be really analyzed without too many external factors coming in or exogenous variables. So through this, we found that the data from 1991 to 97, the dominant firms in the market, so being not only Imperial, but Esso and Petro-Canada, or sorry, not Esso, Shell and Petro-Canada, sorry, maintained market power throughout those years, as well as they substantially gained in some cities, most notably being Halifax and Quebec, which were two major focuses, being Ontario and Quebec and the Atlantic region, actually gained. So again, faulting the court. So you can see in Quebec City, they managed to secure 74% of the market, up 20% from where they were in 1991, which is a substantial gain. Again, targeting those independent retailers, decreasing their ability to operate, and again, increasing the vertical integration, integrated companies to operate, and again, creating an oligopoly type market. So within gasoline markets in Canada, we're experiencing rationalization, which is what we just talked about. A 0.3% increase in price per percentage of retail outlet reduction was what we were seeing through the data. So this is just kind of saying that if the amount of firms in the market reduced by 1%, then you're on average going to see about a 0.34% increase in those markets in price. So as the average market concentration grew by 0.6 to 0.8, given a decrease by 1% with those of firms. So again, as independent retailers leave the market because they're not able to operate, they're going to be able to A, increase pricing, and B, increase their concentration and control more and more and more until those independent firms are all gone. And again, it's an oligopoly type market. So I want to thank you for watching the video and the presentation. I look forward to hearing your feedback. Thank you so much.